Beneath the tropical stillness of the surface, the ocean is a study in shifting patterns and subtle signals. Sunlight penetrates the upper layers in shimmering ribbons, diffused and scattered as it reaches down into the green-blue depths. In this endless aquatic landscape, where no roads are carved, no signs are posted, and the terrain is ever-changing, a predator glides with unerring certainty. The tiger shark, blunt-nosed, dark-striped, and formidable in presence, moves with a purpose that belies the apparent chaos around her. She's not wandering, she's returning. Her path is long and silent. From open pelagic waters to shallow coastal margins, from drop-offs to sandy shoals, the tiger shark navigates what seems like a featureless expanse. Currents shift, tides reshape coastlines, coral reefs bleach and rebuild, yet she finds her way back to the same seagrass beds, the same nesting turtle grounds, and the same shallow feeding zones year after year. Satellite tagging data confirms what local fishers and marine biologists have long suspected. Tiger sharks exhibit strong site fidelity, returning to specific foraging hotspots across thousands of kilometers with remarkable precision. But how? There are no visual landmarks underwater, no mountain ranges or skyline silhouettes to guide a returning hunter. The water itself, dynamic and fluid, offers no permanent anchor. Yet researchers tracking these sharks have watched them make straight-line migrations over vast distances, surfacing only occasionally, with minimal deviation from their intended route. One female tagged off the Hawaiian Islands traveled hundreds of miles to a feeding site near the French frigate Shoals and returned months later, within meters of her original departure point. The pattern repeated again and again. Such consistency hints at a navigational sense that goes beyond instinct. Geomagnetic reception is among the leading theories, an internal compass that allows the shark to detect Earth's magnetic field. Unlike birds, which often navigate using solar or celestial cues, tiger sharks appear to rely on the invisible. Recent studies have shown that other shark species, such as bonnetheads and hammerheads, can orient themselves along magnetic gradients. It is not unreasonable to suggest tiger sharks may possess a refined sensitivity to geomagnetic fields, perhaps even mapping them internally like a living GPS. Yet even this explanation doesn't fully unravel the mystery. In some tracking data, tiger sharks alter their migration paths in relation to changing water temperatures, salinity, or currents, suggesting a multi-sensory integration at work. Thermal gradients, for example, might act as layered highways, each associated with different prey concentrations. And seagrass beds, often overlooked in oceanic ecology, hold vast importance not only as carbon sinks, but also as nursery grounds for countless species, making them predictable buffets for large predators. In spring and early summer, green sea turtles return to specific beaches to lay eggs. Just offshore, tiger sharks begin to appear, not in haphazard numbers, but in timed waves. The sharks' arrivals often precede the nesting season by days or weeks, suggesting they anticipate, not just react to, ecological events. They don't chase the turtles across the ocean. They wait at the endpoint. This kind of predictive behavior hints at more than memory. It suggests a model of time and space embedded in the shark's brain, an evolved system of navigation and expectation. Aerial drone footage and underwater video have captured tiger sharks patrolling the edge of turtle nesting beaches with calculated regularity. Their routes are often the same, hour after hour, day after day, tracking low above the sandy sea floor, scanning for the faint movements of a turtle descending after nesting. When they strike, it's sudden and efficient. A twist of muscle, a burst of speed, and a cloud of sand marks the end. Then, without pause, the shark resumes her patrol, following the same linear path as if retracing a well-worn groove in the ocean floor. Marine biologists studying these behaviors often describe them using terrestrial analogies, routes, territories, schedules, but these terms only partially reflect the ocean's ambiguity. Unlike wolves or lions, tiger sharks do not defend a fixed territory. They are nomadic, transient. Yet within that fluidity, they carve out rhythm and return. One theory posits that chemical signatures left behind by previous visits, traces of waste, prey remains, or even their own skin oils, might act as cues when the shark revisits the site. However, chemical trails disperse quickly in water, and the ocean's constant churn makes this an unlikely sole mechanism. What complicates the picture further is the tiger shark's individual variation. Not all sharks follow the same paths. Some return to the same feeding zone every year, while others visit once and never again. Age, sex, Reproductive status and even personality may play a role. Larger adult females often travel farther than males, especially around mating season. Their internal map may adjust based on reproductive needs, leading them to areas with not only prey, but also potential mates or suitable gestation temperatures. Beyond the biological, there is the ecological significance of their movement. Tiger sharks are not just top-down enforcers of food webs, they're mobile links in the ecosystem, connecting distant habitats. Their foraging impacts turtle behavior, seabird nesting success, and fish distribution. When tiger sharks are present, turtles graze more cautiously, spending less time in open seagrass beds, which in turn allows the seagrass to grow taller and more resilient. Remove the shark, and the entire landscape changes. Such indirect influence highlights the tiger shark's role as what ecologists call a mobile ecosystem engineer. But unlike beavers or termites, who build and reshape their habitat physically, the tiger shark exerts pressure through presence, motion, and fear. And the routes they take, those invisible highways through featureless blue, are as crucial to ecosystem balance as any coral reef or kelp forest. The question remains, how do they remember? Sharks have relatively large brains for fish, and in tiger sharks, the olfactory bulbs and telencephalon, areas associated with learning and spatial memory, are particularly developed. Experimental work with captive sharks has shown they can learn mazes, associate patterns with food rewards, and even remember complex shapes. These cognitive abilities suggest that tiger sharks aren't just sensing their way forward, they're forming mental maps, updating them with each journey, and perhaps even weighing options as they go. But unlike mammals with fixed social structures or parental learning, tiger sharks receive no instruction. From the moment they hatch from leathery eggs or emerge from their mother's womb, they are alone. No parent leads them to feeding grounds. No sibling shows them the way. Their maps are self-made, drawn from trial, error, and perhaps a deeper evolutionary memory encoded into instinct. In a world without roads, the tiger shark is a traveler, a cartographer of the unseen. She moves not through chance but through choice, guided by a matrix of cues we are only beginning to understand. Her path is not marked by footprints or echoing calls, but by a silence so complete it leaves no trace. And yet, every year she finds her way back. Proof that in the wide and wandering ocean, memory does not require a map. Drifting slowly through the warm, equatorial waters of the Indian Ocean, a whale shark moves with the calm inevitability of a passing continent. Its enormous form, dappled with a constellation of white spots and streaks, barely disturbs the water as it glides just beneath the surface. With a mouth over a meter wide and a body that can stretch more than 12 meters in length, the animal's bulk seems at odds with its method of feeding, filtering plankton, fish eggs and small nekton through fine gill rakers, all while swimming at a deliberate pace. There is no chase, no sudden strike, no violent ambush. And yet, to marine biologists, this giant fish is far from passive. It is a living habitat, one that hosts a microscopic drama invisible to the human eye. Across the shark's thick, sandpaper-like skin lies a coating of mucus, a gelatinous layer that might, at first glance, seem little more than biological insulation. But this mucus is not simply a barrier, it's an ecosystem. Layered in this slick envelope is a densely populated world of bacteria, archaea, and microscopic fungi, some of them transient, picked up from the water column, and others persistent, forming long-term communities that seem to have evolved with the host. In this living veil, defenses are mounted, negotiations take place, and the survival of the host is subtly influenced by the balance between cooperation and conflict at the microbial scale. The mucus itself is thick, far thicker than what's found on most bony fish, and renewed regularly as the whale shark moves through the water. Sloughing off old mucus and replacing it with new is not only a way to rid the body of harmful parasites or pathogens, but also a means of regulating the delicate microbial balance. It's analogous to sweeping a crowded city clean each morning and allowing only the most beneficial residents to re-establish their neighborhoods. Sampling of whale shark mucus has revealed a surprisingly diverse array of microorganisms, including species that produce antimicrobial compounds, chemical defenses that help prevent colonization by harmful bacteria or fungi. These aren't simply hitchhikers, they may be vital allies, but not every organism riding the whale shark is microscopic. Look closer, much closer, and you'll find entire communities of larger freeloaders. Copepods cling to the gill arches, remoras cruise in the shadow of the belly, and parasitic flatworms attach themselves in stubborn clusters along the fins and tail. Some of these are harmless or even symbiotic, cleaning skin or feeding on excess mucus and detritus. Others are less welcome. The challenge for the whale shark is one of selective tolerance. How to manage this living entourage without waging war on every organism it encounters. In some cases, the relationship leans toward mutualism. Certain remoras, for example, feed on parasites that would otherwise remain undisturbed on the shark's surface. Their suction cup heads allow them to cling tightly as the whale shark moves, and they often position themselves strategically near the gills or along the flank, where water flow brings food particles or dislodges waste. It's a precarious balance, too many remoras and drag increases affecting the shark's efficiency. But the benefit of reduced parasite load may offset the cost. The mucus itself may even play a role in regulating these relationships, with its chemical composition influencing what can and cannot adhere. From a research perspective, studying this mucus ecosystem is difficult. The sheer size of the whale shark makes it a challenge to sample consistently, and the delicacy of the mucus layer means that even the approach of a diver can disrupt it. Yet advances in eDNA analysis, sequencing fragments of DNA found in the water surrounding the animal, are beginning to provide a clearer picture. And that picture is complex. Some researchers have identified mucus-specific microbial communities that differ significantly from those found on surrounding water, or even on other species of sharks. These microbial fingerprints suggest that the mucus isn't a passive host, but a managed space, possibly shaped by the immune system of the shark and the chemistry of the mucus itself. This complexity matters because the whale shark's skin is its first and often only line of defense. Unlike bony fish, sharks do not have scales in the traditional sense, but instead possess dermal denticles, tiny tooth-like structures embedded in the skin. These denticles reduce drag and discourage parasite attachment, but they also create a textured surface that holds mucus in place. This microtopography likely influences how water flows across the body and how microbes and particles interact with the surface. In many ways, the skin and mucus together function like a dynamic filter, modulating what gets in and what is kept out. Even more intriguing is the possibility that the microbial community plays a role in immune education. In mammals, including humans, exposure to diverse microbial environments early in life helps train the immune system to distinguish friend from foe. It's not yet known whether a similar process occurs in whale sharks, but the stable presence of certain bacteria across multiple individuals and populations hints at a relationship that extends beyond chance. These microbes may help signal the presence of invaders, regulate inflammatory responses, or even outcompete harmful pathogens by occupying available niches. In areas where whale sharks aggregate, such as the Ningaloo Reef in Australia, the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, or the Maldives, individuals can be seen swimming slowly through plankton-rich waters, their mouths open wide in steady, rhythmic motion. Around them swirl clouds of fish, remoras, and juvenile jacks, often darting in and out of the shark's massive shadow. From above, the scene seems almost serene, but up close, the surface of the shark's body is a mosaic of tiny interactions, each playing out in real time. A juvenile remora tries to latch on and is sloughed off by a fresh layer of mucus. A parasitic copepod burrows into a soft fold near the gill opening and is swiftly engulfed by a film of defensive bacteria. Every movement triggers a chain reaction, and every inch of the shark's body is a frontier between host and guest. The practical implications of these findings extend beyond curiosity. Understanding how whale sharks manage their microbial environments could provide insights into managing biofouling on ships, improving antimicrobial surfaces, or even advancing probiotic treatments in aquaculture. Nature, after all, has been experimenting with these systems for hundreds of millions of years, and the whale shark, among the oldest lineages of extant vertebrates, is a testament to the success of integrated invisible defense. But none of this is visible to the casual observer. To most, the whale shark is simply a slow-moving, harmless giant, a charismatic filter feeder whose size and docility make it a favorite of ecotourism ventures and nature documentaries. Yet beneath the spotted skin lies a battlefield of chemical signals, microbial alliances, and evolutionary negotiation. The mucus, renewed and sloughed off like a cellular tide, is both armor and archive, carrying traces of where the shark has been, what it has encountered, and how it has survived. As the shark disappears into the distance, its vast tail sweeping with lazy arcs through the blue, The sunlight dances briefly across its ridged back before it fades into deeper water. The reef resumes its rhythm. The fish return to their shoals, and the suspended plankton drifts on the current. But behind it lingers a trail, not just of disturbed water, but of microscopic life, chemical trails, and biological interactions layered thick across its skin. The whale shark leaves no footprints, but its presence reshapes the ecosystem in ways no satellite can track, and no naked eye can follow. Its defense is not speed or venom, but the quiet, consistent complexity of a body that hosts its own living shield. In the cold, steel-blue waters off the coast of South Africa, just before dawn, the sea lies quiet and heavy. A thin mist hangs over the surface, blurring the line between water and sky. Below this calm veneer, the energy builds unseen. Anchored in the depths, a seal patrols the fringe of a kelp forest, scanning the open ocean for danger. The surface above remains deceptively still, but 40 feet below, something is moving with controlled precision. A shape, pale-bellied and slate-backed, coils its muscular frame like a compressed spring. It is a great white shark, and in this silent ballet of predator and prey, timing is everything. When it strikes, it does so with such force that the entire body explodes from the water. It is not a casual leap. It is a breach, a full-body eruption where nearly a ton of muscle, cartilage, and teeth rockets vertically through the ocean surface. For a brief moment, the shark becomes a creature of the air, twisting slightly as it arcs above the waves. Water sprays in every direction. Gravity soon reclaims its hold, and the shark crashes back down with a thunderous splash. In some cases, the seal is caught mid-breach, clamped in jaws that can exert over 4,000 pounds of pressure per square inch. But even when it misses, the shock alone is enough to scatter prey in panic. This behavior, while dramatic to witness, is not random. It is a product of biomechanical precision and years of evolutionary fine-tuning. Breach hunting is seen most frequently in specific locations: Seal Island in False Bay, the Neptune Islands in Australia, and sporadically off the coasts of California and New Zealand. These regions share a few critical factors: dense populations of pinnipeds, open deep water near haul-out zones, and predictable travel routes used by young, inexperienced seals. The seals, usually Cape fur seals or sea lions, must navigate from their rocky outposts to offshore feeding grounds. Their path takes them over a kind of underwater ambush corridor, a kill zone where the great whites wait, suspended in deeper, darker water. For the shark, success hinges on geometry and timing. It must remain hidden until the moment of attack, maintaining a low profile against the dark sea floor. As the seal passes overhead, the shark calculates the angle, depth, and trajectory required to intercept it mid-swim. Too soon, and the prey escapes. Too late, and the shark loses energy on a failed breach. The ideal attack often begins from 30 to 50 feet below, with the shark swimming upward at speeds exceeding 25 miles per hour. That might not sound extreme, but underwater, and for an animal weighing up to 2,000 pounds, this is an enormous expenditure of energy. Acceleration occurs over a short vertical burst, powered by thick bands of red muscle near the shark's trunk, and driven by a powerful caudal fin shaped for thrust rather than endurance. The result is a phenomenon rarely seen in the natural world, a fish becoming temporarily airborne. Few marine animals are capable of such complete breaches. Some dolphins do it for play or communication. Orcas may leap during social displays or to stun prey. But the great white's breach is unique in both scale and purpose. It is a strike, and the height achieved, sometimes over 10 feet above the waterline, is a testament to the shark's raw acceleration. Not just muscle, but timing, angle, and intent. From a physics standpoint, the breach is a violent redirection of energy. The shark's body must overcome both drag and its own weight to exit the water. Drag increases exponentially with speed in water, which is nearly 800 times denser than air. This means the shark's acceleration must be immediate and sustained, pushing through a medium that resists motion far more than air ever could. At the moment of exit, the entire volume of the shark, every inch, must clear the surface tension. The visual effect is startling: a torpedo erupting vertically, mouth agape, followed by a crashing descent that sends shockwaves across the water's surface. Not every great white can do this. The behavior is most often observed in younger, more agile individuals, typically between 8 to 14 feet long. Larger adults, especially females that can exceed 18 feet and weigh over 4,000 pounds, rarely breach. Their bulk simply makes the maneuver too costly in energy. Breaching is a specialized tactic, not a default hunting style. Most great whites rely on lateral ambushes, stealthy stalks, or quick chases. Only in regions with reliable access to airborne prey, such as seals that spend considerable time at the surface, does breaching become a routine part of the predator's repertoire. Interestingly, not all breaches are successful. Studies in False Bay have shown that in roughly half of observed breaches, the shark fails to make contact with its intended prey. And yet, even failed breaches have strategic value. The sheer shock and awe of the attack can scatter a seal group, isolating weaker individuals. Breaches also appear to serve a teaching function. Juvenile sharks in these areas have been observed practicing breaches on decoys or even inanimate objects, as if refining the mechanics of the movement before deploying it in a live hunt. In controlled experiments and natural observations, scientists have placed seal-shaped decoys at the surface to study breach behavior more closely. These decoys often trigger spectacular attacks, allowing researchers to capture high-speed footage and gather data on angles, depth, and velocity. The footage reveals how the shark adjusts its posture during ascent, tucking its pectoral fins slightly to reduce drag, lifting its snout to maintain an upward trajectory, and often twisting at the last moment to align its jaws with the decoy. The breach is not a mindless lunge. It is an orchestrated strike, requiring coordination between multiple muscle groups and real-time spatial calculation. This kind of tactical precision suggests an advanced level of sensory integration. The great white's brain, though modest in size compared to mammals, is highly developed in regions responsible for visual processing, olfaction, and electroreception. The ampullae of Lorenzini, tiny pores clustered around the snout, allow the shark to detect electrical impulses emitted by the muscles of nearby prey. Combined with acute vision and an internal ear capable of detecting low-frequency vibrations, the shark gathers a complex, three-dimensional map of its surroundings before deciding when and where to strike. The environment itself plays a crucial role. Sea conditions, light levels, and tide cycles can all influence breach frequency. Early morning, with low light and calm seas, provides the best conditions for stealth. In overcast weather or choppy waves, seals are harder to silhouette against the surface, making targeting more difficult. Even the position of the sun can affect how easily a shark sees its prey from below. Breaching is not just about raw power. It's about timing the strike within a narrow environmental window that maximizes surprise and minimizes effort. Over time, prey behavior has also adapted. Seals in high-risk areas have been observed engaging in evasive swimming tactics, zigzagging at the surface, diving unpredictably, or traveling in groups to reduce individual risk. This arms race of adaptation mirrors countless others in predator-prey dynamics, but in this case, it plays out in bursts of dramatic cinematic violence, punctuating long stretches of eerie calm. For all its spectacle, breaching remains a relatively rare and localized behavior. Most great whites spend their time in deeper waters, patrolling coastlines or migrating across ocean basins. The sharks that do breach have adapted to very specific circumstances and prey types. This makes the behavior an ideal case study for how evolution doesn't just shape anatomy, it shapes strategy. Not every shark can fly. But for those that can, even for a few seconds, the ocean becomes a stage for a kind of performance where the rules of water and air are momentarily suspended. The seal, if it survives, will remember. So too will the observers, researchers, and filmmakers who witness the display. But for the shark, the breach is not about drama. It's about efficiency. It is an adaptation stripped to its functional core, honed not for spectacle but survival. In that brief moment above the waves, the great white becomes more than a swimmer. It becomes a calculated missile of flesh and muscle, launched by instinct, guided by senses, and shaped by the precise mechanics of evolution. In the far southern reaches of the planet, where daylight can stretch for 20 hours or vanish altogether, the ocean's surface is broken not by waves, but by jagged sheets of sea ice. These flows drift slowly, colliding with dull, echoing groans, creaking like ancient doors in the shifting Antarctic wind. The water is black, frigid, and deceptively calm. Beneath the flows, the silence is not absolute. Every so often, a low-frequency call pulses through the depths, felt more than heard. Then come the shadows, Moving below the ice in perfect coordination, a group of orcas, Antarctica's apex strategists, advance with a patience not often seen in ocean predators. This pod, known to researchers as part of Type B orcas, specializes in hunting seals that rest on floating slabs of ice. Unlike pelagic orcas that target fish or herring with sonar bursts or high-speed chases, these individuals practice a different kind of hunting, one that demands not just force, but planning. As the pod approaches a medium-sized floe, perhaps 15 feet across and resting low in the water, they slow down. Resting atop it is a Weddell seal, its body relaxed but alert, nostrils flaring as it scans the open water. The seal is not panicked. Not yet. To it, the floe is sanctuary, a mobile island drifting in the cold. The orcas fan out beneath the surface. Their formation is not random. Two move to the outer edges, another circles the rear, while one or two remain underneath, assessing the underside of the ice. The seal cannot see what's coming. What happens next is a masterclass in applied intelligence. With remarkable synchronization, the orcas lunge forward in unison, pushing a wave ahead of them. The combined thrust generates a pulse of water that lifts the edge of the floe and destabilizes the seal's grip. Ice tips. The seal scrambles. Another wave follows. The floe rocks again. The seal, sliding helplessly toward the water's edge, is tossed into the sea. But this is not the end of the hunt. It is only the beginning. Once the seal is in the water, the orcas do not immediately strike. They may push it back onto another floe or herd it in open water, testing its endurance. Some hunts can stretch for minutes, others for nearly an hour. This seemingly theatrical behavior has a functional purpose. It forces the seal to exhaust itself, reducing its agility and increasing the odds of a clean kill. Orcas know when to strike, and equally important, when not to. Their restraint, paradoxically, is part of what makes them so dangerous. This hunting technique, called wave washing, is unique to certain orca populations and is not instinctual. Calves don't perform it immediately after birth. They learn it over years of observation and trial, taught through social learning from older pod members. In some pods, adults have been seen rehearsing the tactic with juveniles, using empty ice floes to practice creating waves. This alone places orcas in a rare category among non-human animals, those capable of cultural transmission. The behavior is not hardwired. It's passed on, refined, and adapted based on conditions. And those conditions change constantly. Ice thickness, flow density, currents and wind can all influence whether a wave will tip a floe or leave it unmoved. Orcas must adjust their approach depending on ice type and the position of the seal. They appear to make real-time assessments, approaching from different angles if needed, backing off to regroup, and reattempting from a new direction. There's no brute force, no frenzy. Instead, it's as if they're solving a physical puzzle, each hunt a variation on a learned template, modified to fit the moment. While wave washing may be the most cinematic of their ice hunting tactics, it is not the only one. In some cases, orcas have been documented using their heads to tilt small ice chunks, or even create sudden vertical thrusts that fracture fragile floes from beneath. In particularly challenging hunts, they have been seen using their flukes to slap the ice, attempting to shatter it entirely. When working near grounded icebergs or pressure ridges, they use narrow channels and shadows to flush seals out toward open water, creating ambush lanes that mimic the coordinated behavior of wolf packs. Each variation requires not just strength but spatial awareness, an understanding of the environment that few marine predators possess. This level of environmental awareness extends beyond the hunt. Orcas remember the contours of coastal terrain, shifting ice boundaries, and the seasonal behavior of their prey. In regions where the ice is constantly breaking and reforming, this memory becomes crucial. A seal may not use the same flow twice, but the orcas know the corridors seals prefer to travel. They patrol those lanes during the most productive hours, early mornings or late afternoons, when seals are likely to haul out or transition between resting spots. It's not random search behavior, it's informed patrol. Acoustic observation supports the idea that these hunts involve a high degree of communication. The orcas exchange calls, some short and clipped, others more melodic. These aren't the rapid echolocation clicks used to track herring or sonar-sensitive fish. Instead, they appear to serve a social function, coordinating movement and perhaps assigning roles. Different pods have been found to use slightly different vocalizations, suggesting dialects, a further marker of learned localized behavior. From a physiological standpoint, These orcas are built for this cold, calculated style of hunting. Their coloration, white eye patches set against black bodies, breaks up their outline beneath the ice, making them harder to detect from above. Their dorsal fins are smaller and more curved than their tropical relatives, possibly to reduce heat loss. Their blubber layer is thicker, but their muscles remain lean and densely packed, allowing for explosive acceleration when needed. When they finally do take the seal, it's done efficiently. Dragged down beneath the flow, shared among the pod, the meat stripped clean with quick twists of the head and powerful bites. Unlike sharks or crocodiles, orcas do not operate as solitary hunters. Their power lies in cooperation. But unlike the chaotic swarms of pack hunters that rely on speed and overwhelming numbers, orcas coordinate in a way that suggests cognitive mapping, memory, and intentional planning. The ability to perceive an external object, an ice floe, as a manipulable element in a hunt is rare in the animal kingdom. It requires not only object permanence, but predictive reasoning. If we push here, the prey will go there. What makes this even more extraordinary is how context-specific it is. Not all orcas wave wash, not all hunt seals. Those that do are typically confined to the Antarctic or certain Arctic populations. The technique doesn't translate well to other ecosystems where prey isn't associated with floating ice. This geographic restriction means that the behavior is both specialized and vulnerable. If ice conditions change too rapidly, as they already are with warming temperatures, the very structure that enables this complex behavior could vanish. And with it, a unique thread in the tapestry of predator strategy might be lost. For now, though, the ice remains. The flows drift, and the orcas, masters of this stark monochrome world, continue their calculated hunts. Their black and white forms disappear and reappear between the ice sheets, surfacing only briefly to breathe before slipping back beneath the surface, where the real work begins. The seal, if it is lucky, escapes to a thicker flow. If not, it becomes part of a system far older than memory and far more deliberate than instinct alone. This is intelligence applied in cold water, strategic, communal, adaptive, not just survival, but mastery. The mangrove swamps of northern Australia are humid, mosquito-laced, and unforgiving. A haze of heat shimmers over the muddy shallows where salt water and fresh water bleed into one another, forming a tangled, semi-aquatic maze of twisted roots, dark creeks, and still backwaters. The midday sun hammers down on the surface, pushing temperatures beyond 40 degrees Celsius. In this near-boiling environment, where oxygen dissolves slowly in warm water and the air presses heavy on the land, most animals retreat into shade or burrow into the soft ground. But resting motionless on a sandbank, half submerged with only its nostrils, eyes, and armored back exposed, lies a saltwater crocodile, the largest living reptile on Earth, entirely unbothered. To the casual observer, it may appear torpid, even sluggish. Its stillness gives it the illusion of being indifferent to its environment. But beneath the scales and scutes, an intricate system of biological engineering is regulating the very thing that could kill it: heat. Unlike mammals and birds, crocodiles are ectothermic. They do not generate internal heat through metabolism at any meaningful level. Instead, they rely on their environment to warm up or cool down. And in a place where the temperature can fluctuate wildly between blistering sun and sudden tropical rain, that dependency is both a challenge and a weapon. The crocodile's skin is its most immediately visible feature, tough, pebbled, and segmented into rows of bony plates called osteoderms. These are not merely armor. They are vascularized, meaning they're threaded with a network of blood vessels that lie just beneath the surface. During the cooler early hours of the day, a crocodile may haul itself fully out of the water and expose its back to direct sunlight. The osteoderms absorb solar radiation, warming quickly. Blood flowing through them becomes heated and is circulated through the rest of the body, elevating the core temperature without the crocodile needing to move much at all. This allows it to reach optimal muscle efficiency, necessary for explosive ambush attacks, even before the ambient air temperature rises significantly. But as the day progresses and heat becomes a liability, the same structures help to cool the animal. By retreating to water, where temperatures are more stable and usually lower than the surrounding air, the crocodile can offload excess heat. The cooler water draws warmth from the skin and osteoderms, which now act as radiators in reverse. Because water is more thermally conductive than air, this transfer happens efficiently, allowing the crocodile to stay submerged for extended periods without overheating. Its heart rate drops, oxygen use slows, and yet its sensory systems remain alert, ready for any ripple of movement that might suggest a careless bird, an unwary fish, or even a wandering mammal. Adding to this thermal regulation system is an array of dermal pressure receptors, small, dome-shaped structures located mostly around the jaws, but also scattered across the body in some species. Known as integumentary sensory organs, these are among the most sensitive mechanoreceptors found in any vertebrate. They detect changes in water pressure, tiny vibrations, and movement patterns even in total darkness or murky water. But researchers have also discovered that they may play a secondary role in thermal perception. While not thermoreceptors in the traditional sense, their sensitivity to environmental conditions could inform the crocodile about microgradients in water temperature, crucial data when choosing where to position itself during the day or night to maintain thermal balance. Unlike many reptiles that must bask for long periods or retreat entirely during thermal extremes, crocodiles can function in a surprisingly broad range of temperatures. This adaptability is partially due to their ability to shunt blood flow internally. When heating is needed, blood is directed toward the skin and extremities. When cooling is essential, the body prioritizes the brain and vital organs, limiting circulation to the surface. In particularly hot conditions, crocodiles have been observed gaping with their mouths open for long periods, a behavior known as mouth gaping that allows evaporative cooling via the moist surfaces of the tongue and throat, much like a dog panting. It's an effective countermeasure in places where shade is rare, and humidity makes other cooling strategies ineffective. In aquatic environments, their advantage becomes even more pronounced. Crocodiles can dive and remain underwater for over an hour under the right conditions, aided by a dive reflex that slows heart rate and reroutes blood to preserve oxygen for critical organs. During these periods, their body temperature may drop several degrees, essential not only for conserving energy, but also for protecting the brain and muscles from heat stress during prolonged exposure. After emerging, they will often bask again, rewarming carefully before engaging in any high-energy activity like swimming, hunting, or territorial combat. This balancing act is not limited to warm climates. In northern Australia and Southeast Asia, where temperatures can fall sharply overnight or during seasonal monsoon shifts, crocodiles still function efficiently. During cooler months, they may bask for longer periods or seek out shallow pools that heat more quickly than larger bodies of water. In colder regions of their range, they become increasingly nocturnal, taking advantage of residual warmth in sediment and reducing exposure to the coldest parts of the day. The osteoderms again serve double duty, retaining daytime warmth like a battery and releasing it slowly as needed. The elegance of this system lies in its passive efficiency. Crocodiles do not need to burn calories to stay warm. They do not rely on fur, feathers, or insulation. Instead, they've evolved a method of thermal management that relies on positioning, timing, and internal regulation, backed by a skeletal armor that is not just defensive but functional. Osteoderms have been found to contain both capillary networks and bone marrow, allowing for localized control of blood flow and suggesting that thermal regulation is not a generalized response, but one that can be fine-tuned by specific body regions. In larger individuals, particularly the dominant males that exceed 5 meters in length and weigh upwards of 1,000 kilograms, thermal inertia becomes an asset. Their sheer mass means they heat and cool more slowly than smaller animals, allowing for more stable internal temperatures over longer periods. This stability gives them the edge in mating displays, long-distance travel, and prolonged underwater ambushes. Juveniles, on the other hand, are more vulnerable to temperature swings and rely more heavily on behavioral adjustments, frequent basking, selective habitat use, and grouping behavior to retain heat. The interplay between physiology and behavior is critical to the crocodile's success as an apex predator. It doesn't just react to its environment, it manages it. Whether lying beneath a patch of floating lilies, waiting at the edge of a cattle crossing, or swimming silently through a brackish estuary at dusk, the crocodile is constantly adjusting its internal state. Its body, far from being a cold-blooded relic, is a dynamic system capable of modulating itself with remarkable efficiency. This efficiency helps explain why crocodiles have remained largely unchanged for over 80 million years. Their approach is not primitive, it is specialized. In environments where thermal extremes can cripple or kill less adaptable animals, crocodiles endure. Their bodies are not burdened by the metabolic costs of homeothermy. Instead, they use the sun, the water, and the structure of their own skin to maintain equilibrium. What appears to be stillness is, in fact, strategy. When viewed from above, a basking crocodile may look like a lump of fossilized debris, an inert piece of the landscape. But its skin is sensing. Its blood is flowing. Its internal systems are negotiating the physics of heat and energy in real time. The armor that once protected it from the teeth and claws of long-extinct predators now doubles as a thermal circuit, radiating, absorbing, insulating. It is not simply surviving the heat, it is mastering it. The shallow waters of a sunlit bay ripple with quiet activity. Beneath the turquoise surface, sandbanks blur into seagrass beds, and shafts of light slice down into a watery world that constantly shifts and reforms. Small baitfish shimmer near the bottom, flickering like liquid mercury as they shift direction in a single fluid movement. To the untrained eye, this scene seems calm, maybe even idyllic, but the silence hides a growing tension, and somewhere in that bright stillness, something is watching, waiting, calculating. From a distance, a small group of bottlenose dolphins closes in. They move as a coordinated unit, sleek bodies undulating just below the surface, surfacing only occasionally for a breath. Their approach is smooth, quiet, and deliberate. These dolphins are not simply moving through the area. They are preparing for a hunt, one that involves not just speed or strength, but deception, planning, and a skill set rarely associated with non-human predators. Manipulation of the environment is a tactical weapon. As they near the school of fish, the lead dolphin veers slightly off course and begins to move in a wide arc, circling the perimeter of the bait cloud. With a few sharp tail beats, it begins to exhale a controlled stream of bubbles, not haphazardly, but in a carefully calculated spiral. The column of rising bubbles catches the fish by surprise. It doesn't physically block them, but it creates a shifting visual and acoustic wall, confusing them, altering their sense of orientation and proximity. The other dolphins fall into position, each taking part in the shaping of this structure. The school of fish now finds itself encased within a ring of bubbles, narrowing with each pass. What appears at first to be play, the swirling bubbles, the elegant movements, the looping paths, is in fact a deliberate hunting strategy. The dolphins are sculpting an illusion. Fish, particularly those that school, rely heavily on visual cues to gauge distance and threat. The rising bubbles distort the view, mimic movement, and disorient individuals, fracturing the cohesion of the group. For the dolphins, this disarray is an opportunity. In this moment, the ring is more than a barrier. It is a decoy, a corral, and a psychological trap. Not every dolphin population uses this technique. Bubble net hunting and ring forging are observed more commonly in coastal bottlenose populations, particularly those in the Bahamas, the Gulf of Mexico, and certain Indo-Pacific regions. It's a behavior that seems to vary based on location and social group, suggesting that, much like the wave-washing orcas of Antarctica, this tactic is learned, refined, and passed down. Calves are often seen observing older individuals closely, trailing them during hunts, mimicking their motions. Over time, they too begin to practice, first producing clumsy, chaotic streams of bubbles that dissipate too early, then slowly mastering the mechanics of control, timing, and direction. The physiology behind it is as intriguing as the behavior itself. Dolphins are capable of controlling their blowholes with great precision, regulating not just the timing but the force and shape of their exhalations. When combined with body rotation and tail thrusts, they can form stable, rising rings of air, structures that remain intact for several seconds, rising like slow-motion halos. These rings can be used in multiple contexts, for herding fish, for dividing schools into smaller packets, or even for isolating a single individual for capture. And while their visual impact is obvious, recent studies suggest an acoustic dimension to the tactic as well. The bubble curtain may distort the echoes from echolocation clicks, making it harder for fish to detect approaching predators. In this sense, the dolphins aren't just crafting a visual illusion, they are creating an acoustic blind spot, reducing the prey's ability to perceive danger. Some researchers have hypothesized that the bubbles scatter sound waves in complex patterns, creating zones of relative quiet where the fish are more vulnerable to surprise. After the bubble ring is complete and the fish have clustered tightly in the center, often in a frantic ball of flashing silver, the dolphins begin to strike. One or two individuals take turns charging through the center, mouths open, snapping up as many fish as possible in a single pass. Then they peel away and rejoin the perimeter. Others follow. The process repeats, with minimal disruption to the bubble structure. The choreography is remarkable not only for its efficiency, but for the restraint involved. The dolphins don't overhunt. They leave the ring intact between attacks, and the fish, disoriented and pressured from all sides, remain trapped until the group decides the hunt is complete. Interestingly, bubble manipulation isn't limited to group feeding. Solitary dolphins have been observed using similar techniques to confuse individual fish, producing a ring or wall of bubbles and then circling back to strike. In rare cases, they have even used the rising ring as a means of flushing bottom-dwelling prey upward, startling small fish or invertebrates into motion. This ability to adapt the same tactic to different hunting styles, solo or social, pelagic or benthic, underscores the flexibility of the dolphin mind. Not all bubble use is predatory, though. Dolphins are also known to create bubble rings during moments of play or social interaction. Calves will form and chase them, nudging the rings with their rostrums, spinning through them like hoops. It's tempting to draw a line between this behavior and the structured hunts, but the line is thin. Play, in many intelligent animals, is a form of practice. And in dolphins, the boundaries between behavior types are often fluid. A calf spinning through a ring may one day use the same skill to feed its pod. This raises the question of intentionality. Are the dolphins aware that they are building traps? Or is the behavior purely instinctual? While it's difficult to answer definitively, the precision, variation, and clear signs of learning all suggest a cognitive understanding of cause and effect. The dolphin doesn't just exhale bubbles randomly, it positions them, shapes them, and adjusts based on prey reaction. It watches the result and modifies the approach. This level of behavioral plasticity is rare among non-human animals and is one of the reasons dolphins are so extensively studied in the fields of cognition and comparative psychology. In the broader ecosystem, this bubble sculpting represents a quiet but powerful form of top-down control. By altering prey behavior, dolphins influence the structure of fish schools, which in turn affects how those fish feed, hide, or reproduce. And because the tactic varies between pods, it adds behavioral diversity to local predator communities. Multiple strategies coexisting in the same species, shaped by environment, tradition, and innovation. Back in the bay, the hunt winds down. The dolphins drift apart, slower now, sated for the moment. A few remnants of the bubble ring still spiral upward, dissolving into the shallows. The school of fish is gone, scattered or consumed. The water is calm again, the sand undisturbed. To anyone arriving now, the scene would seem quiet, even empty. But for those who watched closely, the story remains etched in the water. A circle formed from breath, a trap of air, and a kill made possible not by brute force, but by strategy, timing, and the power to deceive. Far beneath the rolling surface of the Pacific, where shafts of sunlight fracture into ribbons and vanish into the blue, the water thickens with distance and time. Down here, in the twilight zone between light and dark, the ocean no longer moves with surface winds, but with slow, deliberate swells. It's an expanse defined more by vibration than by sight. Vision fades quickly in water, but sound travels far. And somewhere in that layered, pressurized silence, a deep rhythmic sequence begins to unfurl. A series of low, drawn-out moans, warbles, and pulses, almost imperceptible at first, then unmistakable. The song of a humpback whale, carried not just through water but across it, sometimes for thousands of kilometers. The singer is a male, suspended in the water column near the edge of a submerged seamount. He isn't swimming or hunting, he's broadcasting, his enormous frame nearly still, save for the subtle flexing of fins and tail to maintain position. The sound doesn't come from his mouth, but is generated internally through the laryngeal sac, passed through complex folds in the throat, and modulated in pitch and rhythm by shifting pressure within the lungs and thorax. This vocalization, haunting, patterned, and loud enough to carry for over 10,000 miles under ideal conditions, is not a call for help or a cry of warning. It's something more ambiguous. A mating display, perhaps, a navigational beacon. A kind of long-distance announcement that says, "I'm here, I'm alive, and I know this ocean well." What makes the humpback's song particularly unusual is not just its strength or length, it's its structure. Unlike the clicks of a sperm whale or the whistles of a dolphin, the humpback song is made up of organized units, phrases repeated in predictable sequences that evolve gradually over time. Each population sings a slightly different version, and those versions shift year to year, sometimes subtly, sometimes drastically. It's been compared to cultural evolution, with the whales themselves acting as both composers and audiences. But these are not random sounds. They follow recognizable acoustic logic, escalating intensity, repetition and cadence, sometimes with elements that mirror one another in reverse, a kind of natural symmetry. The propagation of these sounds depends heavily on oceanographic factors. Water is a much better conductor of sound than air, and low-frequency sound, under 1,000 Hz, can travel particularly far. Humpback songs often fall in the range of 30 to 300 Hz, and in the right conditions, they can travel for hundreds of kilometers without significant loss of clarity. This is due to something called the sonar channel, a horizontal layer of water typically found at depths between 600 and 1,200 meters, where sound velocity reaches a minimum due to the interplay between temperature, pressure, and salinity. Sounds that enter this channel can bounce between its boundaries like whispers trapped in a hallway, traveling immense distances with little distortion. This phenomenon allows a whale's voice to span entire ocean basins. A singer in the South Pacific might be heard, faintly but distinctly, off the coast of Hawaii. And though the receiving whale may be hundreds of kilometers away, it can still detect key elements of the song's structure: the phrasing, the rhythm, the pitch shifts. These features are important because they aren't static. Male humpbacks adjust their songs throughout the year, modifying tone, duration, and pattern not randomly, but in response to changing conditions. During the breeding season, songs tend to be louder and more complex. In migration corridors, they're often simpler, possibly to save energy or to maintain signal clarity over distance. Depth also matters. At different depths, sound behaves differently, refracted by thermal layers or absorbed by turbulence. Whales have been observed altering their pitch, depending on how deep they are when singing. A deeper singer may lower his frequencies to ensure the sound remains within the sonar channel. Conversely, closer to the surface, where sound can scatter more easily, they may use higher frequencies to increase local volume. It's not a conscious manipulation of physics, but an evolved sensitivity to acoustic feedback, a fine-tuned ability to adjust output based on what is likely to be heard and how it will be interpreted. What makes this even more remarkable is that the whales seem to synchronize their song changes across vast distances. A new pattern that appears in one region often shows up months later in neighboring populations, suggesting that whales are not only listening to one another, but adopting and modifying what they hear. In this way, whale songs propagate like trends, evolving motifs that pass from one group to another like a baton in a relay. It is one of the few examples in the animal kingdom of vocal culture changing independently of genetic lineage. This synchronization raises further questions. What exactly are the whales communicating? If it's a mating call, why would males across a population conform to the same pattern rather than trying to stand out? One theory suggests that conformity itself may signal fitness. A male that can perfectly replicate a complex current version of the song demonstrates both physical stamina and cognitive ability. Another possibility is that the song creates a shared acoustic landscape, allowing individuals to identify one another, locate rivals or potential mates, and navigate migration routes more effectively. Some researchers have speculated that the songs may also contain information about environmental changes, echoes of seismic activity, ship traffic, or temperature shifts embedded in their echoes and resonances. Sound for a humpback is not just a means of expression, it is a mode of perception. Their ears are adapted to low frequencies and separated enough across the skull to allow for directional hearing, even underwater. This gives them a form of auditory mapping where they can likely see the shape of their environment through reflected sound, much as echolocating bats do in air. In this acoustic world, songs may be both beacon and scanner, a way of projecting presence while simultaneously interpreting space. The song, then, is more than art or instinct. It's a living signal, a biologically embedded code that shifts with season, geography, and audience. During the breeding season in warm, tropical waters, the song grows in complexity, possibly as a competitive display among males in the presence of females. In the feeding grounds of colder regions, song use declines, replaced by other forms of communication, like grunts, groans, and bubble blasts used in coordinated hunting. But even in these regions, the distant hum of a solitary singer can sometimes be heard, an echo from thousands of kilometers away, reaching ears that recognize its cadence even if they never see its source. As climate change alters ocean temperatures, acidity, and salinity, the acoustic properties of seawater are changing too. Some frequencies now travel farther than before, while others are absorbed more quickly. Humpbacks, long masters of these underwater soundscapes, may need to adjust their songs to remain audible, even as human noise pollution from shipping, seismic surveys, and sonar increasingly drowns out the natural voices of the sea. Whether the whales can adapt quickly enough is still uncertain. But their history suggests resilience. Their songs have shifted and evolved not just in content, but in delivery, season after season, across oceans and generations. Back in the depths, the singer continues. His song is not rushed. Each sequence is repeated again and again, echoing off underwater ridges, bending through thermal layers, ricocheting into the blue. Somewhere, miles away, another whale may hear the pattern and respond, or not. It doesn't matter. The sound continues, part signal, part ritual, part architecture of the ocean itself. In a world without walls or borders, the song is the map, the memory, and the language. It is how humpbacks mark their place, not on the seafloor or the surface, but within the water's very structure, carried in vibration and rhythm across the deep. In the bathypelagic zone, over 1,000 meters beneath the ocean's surface, there is no sunlight, no surface ripple, no day or night. Pressure is immense, light is absent, and temperature hovers near freezing. Here, life has adapted to extremes, and predators must locate their prey without the aid of vision. It's in this hostile world that one of the planet's most formidable acoustic hunters descends in silence. The sperm whale, Physeter macrocephalus, is not built for speed or agility like dolphins, nor does it rely on brute force like sharks. Instead, it brings with it something entirely different, a built-in sonar cannon powered by a massive acoustic organ buried within the largest head in the animal kingdom. The descent begins with measured grace. The whale tilts its head downward, holding its fluke steady, gradually reducing its heartbeat to conserve oxygen for the dive. Within minutes, it vanishes into darkness, its 18-meter-long body slipping below the thermocline and into an environment where visual cues are useless. The whale's massive skull, a third the length of its entire body, is not an evolutionary accident of scale. It houses the spermaceti organ and the junk, two intricately structured masses of fatty tissue and cartilage that function not as padding, but as an advanced acoustic system designed for echolocation. The whale is about to light up the dark with sound. As it approaches hunting depth, often between 1,000 and 2,000 meters, clicks begin to emerge. Each one is brief but powerful, a sharp metallic knock that echoes through the water like a deep-sea hammer strike. These clicks aren't random. They're tightly focused pulses that can be repeated at intervals ranging from milliseconds to seconds depending on the situation. The clicks serve dual purposes: long-range navigation and short-range target detection. Think of it as sweeping a spotlight in one mode and narrowing it to a laser beam in another. And unlike dolphins, whose echolocation clicks are relatively soft and rapid, the sperm whale's clicks can exceed 230 decibels underwater, among the loudest biological sounds ever recorded. The power behind this sonar system lies in the structure of the spermaceti organ. It is filled with a waxy, lipid-rich substance that can be selectively cooled or warmed by surrounding vascular structures, changing its density and acoustic properties. This allows the whale to manipulate how sound waves are reflected and refracted within its skull. When a click is produced, originating from the monkey lips, a pair of muscular valves located in the nose, sound travels forward into the spermaceti organ, bounces off the frontal surfaces of the skull and junk, and is then projected outward in a tightly focused beam. At the same time, reflected echoes from the environment return through the fatty tissues, providing detailed information about the shape, size, and density of nearby objects. What this means in practical terms is that a sperm whale can identify a squid in complete darkness at a distance and distinguish between prey and non-prey based on the acoustic signature alone. It's even been proposed that the most intense clicks may do more than scan, they may stun. Some researchers have hypothesized that close-range echolocation bursts can disorient small prey, especially soft-bodied animals like squid, by overwhelming their sensory systems. While the idea of sonic stunning remains under investigation, There's no doubt that sperm whale clicks are strong enough to be felt. Divers have reported physical sensations, tingling, pressure, even mild discomfort when exposed to the pulses at close range. This echolocation system becomes especially crucial when targeting prey that hides in the most inaccessible reaches of the ocean. The sperm whale's primary target, the deep-sea squid, doesn't float idly in the water column. It may hover near seamounts, retreat into rocky crevices, or glide along steep slopes in near-zero visibility. Visual predators would be lost in this featureless abyss. But the sperm whale maps the space in 3 dimensions using sound, identifying not only movement, but the contours of the seafloor, the density of surrounding objects, and even the position of other whales in its group. Sperm whales are often solitary hunters, but they also travel in social units, especially females and their calves, which remain near the surface. Adult males, which are typically larger and more solitary, venture deeper and farther, sometimes migrating between poles and the equator in pursuit of food. These males may dive over 1,000 meters multiple times a day, remaining submerged for up to an hour on a single breath.
During this time, their sonar pulses become their only connection to the world around them. Every click is a question, every returning echo an answer.
What's perhaps most remarkable is the precision of this system. The whale doesn't simply detect the presence of a squid. It identifies orientation, movement, and range with a resolution that rivals military sonar systems. Laboratory simulations suggest that sperm whales may be able to detect an object the size of a grapefruit from hundreds of meters away. And they don't just send a single click and wait. Click trains, rapid sequences of pulses, allow the whale to build an evolving model of the target in real time, updating distance, trajectory, and likely escape response. It's an active, adaptive process, a dialogue with the dark. This internal speaker system is so efficient that it shapes nearly every aspect of the whale's anatomy. The elongated head isn't for housing a large brain, although the brain itself is enormous. It's for creating acoustic power. The entire upper portion of the skull is asymmetrical, with the blowhole offset to the left and sound projection systems dominating the right. Even the nostrils are adapted, one for breathing, the other for sound production. This internal architecture has no parallel in the animal kingdom and demonstrates an extraordinary level of evolutionary specialization. Occasionally, the whale will surface after a dive, expelling a burst of air through its blowhole, the angled spout indicating species before any part of its body is seen. Scars cover its body, some from giant squid tentacles, others from past social conflict. These marks are a record of the world it moves through, one where vision has little value, but acoustic mastery is everything. Between dives, the whale may rest motionless near the surface, allowing oxygen to recharge its system, its heart rate slowly rising. But it won't be long before it dives again, repeating the cycle that has defined its existence for tens of millions of years. In an ocean increasingly filled with anthropogenic noise, ship engines, sonar arrays, drilling operations, the sperm whale's reliance on acoustic clarity makes it vulnerable. Disruption in their frequency ranges can interfere with navigation, communication, and hunting. Their world is not silent, but it is carefully tuned to a spectrum of sound that humans are only beginning to understand. Conservation efforts now increasingly consider acoustic pollution as a serious ecological threat, one that may be just as damaging as chemical contamination or habitat loss. Yet for now, deep below the surface, the whale's clicks continue. They rebound off seamounts, dance through underwater canyons, and sweep across plains where sunlight will never reach. In the dark zones of the ocean, where vision fails and silence would mean blindness, the sperm whale crafts a sonic map of its surroundings, one pulse at a time. It hunts not with teeth first, but with sound, projected from within, shaped by a body designed for resonance and received by a brain capable of turning echoes into certainty. It is a predator that doesn't need to see to know. It listens, it measures, and it strikes, guided not by instinct alone, but by a living sonar that has evolved into one of nature's most advanced systems of perception. Just beyond the reef crest, where coral colonies give way to sandy flats and scattered rubble fields, the seafloor appears quiet and bare. It's a place few predators linger, exposed, unpredictable, and lacking the cover needed to launch a surprise or avoid one. But beneath an overturned shell, between the arms of a sponge, or tucked beneath a carefully placed shard of coral, something stirs. A single eye, slit and golden, peers out from a shadowed hollow.
Its pupil adjusts with a pulse, reading light and movement.
A faint shift in the sand, almost imperceptible, and the octopus sinks deeper into its den, its body conforming perfectly to the shape of the hollow it chose, or rather, the one it built. Unlike most marine predators, the octopus is soft, entirely boneless, and startlingly vulnerable. Without a shell or armor to protect it, survival depends not on brute strength, but on concealment, manipulation, and environmental control. The octopus, especially members of the genus Amphiooctopus and Octopus vulgaris, has developed a strategy nearly unheard of among invertebrates. It engineers its own shelter. Not only does it seek out protective structures like discarded bottles or mollusk shells, but it actively collects and arranges materials, stones, broken coral, coconut shells, into functional dens. These aren't nests, and they aren't random piles. They are deliberate constructions, and in many cases they are repeatable. On the plains of Indonesia's Lembeh Strait, researchers have recorded octopuses dragging coconut shell halves across the seafloor, one in each arm, carried like shields. When threatened, the animal retreats into one half and pulls the other down over its body, forming an improvised sphere of armor. In other cases, the octopus arranges rocks at the entrance to its den, creating a low wall that masks its presence or blocks intruders. If the surrounding materials change, the animal adapts, switching to bottle caps, shells, or even debris from passing boats. The flexibility of the strategy is as remarkable as the behavior itself. Tool use, once thought to be the exclusive domain of primates and select bird species, has been redefined by this 8-armed mollusk. While some may argue that carrying objects isn't equivalent to tool use, the octopus's behavior often involves foresight. In controlled studies, octopuses have been observed selecting specific items and carrying them for future use, even when no immediate need is present. This element of delayed gratification and strategic planning pushes the behavior into a new category of cognitive complexity, one that blurs the line between instinct and intelligent action. The construction of dens serves more than one purpose. It provides shelter, yes, but also creates an ambush point. An octopus may hide beneath a constructed canopy of rubble and extend only 1 or 2 arms outward, using their sensitive suckers to detect vibrations and chemical signals in the water. When a crab passes nearby, the strike is sudden. An arm lashes out, wraps around the prey, and drags it back beneath the cover, where the octopus's sharp beak delivers the killing bite. The den becomes not only a shield, but a trap, camouflaged and custom-built. Even the way octopuses hunt outside their dens reflects tactical planning. Some species will mimic the movement of flounders or lionfish, using undulating arms and skin patterning to approach prey without alerting them. Others have been observed herding fish into corners, using coordinated arm positions to restrict escape routes. There is evidence that some octopuses, particularly in regions with dense reef structure, will use rock fragments as projectiles, flinging them at persistent threats or territorial competitors. Whether this behavior is defensive or communicative is still debated, but it further underlines the behavioral range of an animal long thought to be solitary and instinct-driven. Octopuses possess a nervous system unlike any other. 2/3 of their neurons are not in the central brain, but distributed throughout their arms. Each limb can function semi-independently, capable of complex movements and sensory interpretation without direct brain input. This decentralized intelligence allows for multitasking. An arm might be exploring a crevice while another manipulates a shell, and yet another prepares to strike at a passing shrimp. It's as if each limb is thinking on its own, but all actions remain harmonized under a flexible neural umbrella. This system allows an octopus to solve physical problems in real time, adjusting movements and strategies as the environment shifts. Their skin is another tool entirely. Embedded with chromatophores, iridophores, and leucophores, the octopus can shift color, reflect light, and change texture with astonishing precision. When constructing a den, the animal often blends perfectly with the surroundings, matching the grains of sand, the shimmer of algae, or the dim gray of an abandoned shell. It's a biological cloaking device that not only hides the octopus, but enhances the effectiveness of its constructed shelter. If the den isn't seen, it doesn't need to be defended. Despite their cognitive sophistication, octopuses are short-lived. Most species live only 1 to 2 years. Females die shortly after laying eggs, having spent weeks or months guarding them without food. Males, after mating, often disappear into obscurity, their purpose biologically fulfilled. In that narrow window of life, the octopus packs in a repertoire of behaviors that defy expectations. It engineers, deceives, solves, and survives in some of the ocean's most unpredictable terrains. Every den is temporary, every tool eventually discarded or repurposed, but the behaviors persist, generation after generation. In regions with heavy tidal movement, some octopuses have learned to build dual exit dens, one facing the incoming current, the other offering a backdoor escape. In predator-rich zones, the dens become deeper and more fortified, while in resource-dense areas, they may remain open and shallow for easier foraging. This adaptability shows a level of environmental awareness not usually associated with animals lacking bones, social groups, or complex vocal communication. Their intelligence is not a product of society or family, but of necessity. Alone and vulnerable, they evolved a brain capable of mastering physical space. As underwater camera traps become more widespread, footage of these behaviors accumulates, giving us glimpses of acts once thought impossible. An octopus emerges from its den, repositions a stone at the entrance, returns inside, and waits. Another carries a shell for half an hour across a stretch of open sand before disappearing with it beneath a rock outcrop. These moments are not dramatic. They are quiet, methodical, and utterly deliberate. They are evidence of minds shaped not for conquest, but for survival through design. The octopus doesn't build permanent homes. It constructs and reconstructs as needed, responding to each environment with a new plan. There is no blueprint, no routine passed down by parents. Each animal must assess its world and determine how best to remain unseen, how best to strike. Its brain, dense and folded like that of much longer-lived animals, is a center of learning and experimentation. In a world defined by fluidity, currents, shifting sand, and drifting predators, the octopus stands out not for its aggression or size, but for its control of space. It crafts the terrain into something usable, something that extends its influence beyond the limits of its fragile form. It's not a brute or a wanderer. It's a builder. One whose creations may be temporary, but whose method reveals a deeper truth about intelligence in the ocean. It's not always loud, fast, or social. Sometimes it's eight-armed, quiet, and hidden beneath a shell, waiting. Beneath the flickering boundary between light and shadow, where the ocean's surface scatters the sun into ribbons of silver that vanish into deepening blue, life moves with purpose that belies its alien forms. To the untrained eye, it might appear chaotic, a swirl of fins, tentacles, shells, and spines drifting with the current or darting in frantic bursts. But stay longer, watch more carefully, and a different picture emerges. Patterns unfold. Behaviors repeat and refine. There is rhythm in the reef, symmetry in the sand beds, and in the ink-black trenches far below. The actions of creatures that lack backbones, sleep, or social tradition hint at something profoundly complex: strategy. Throughout this documentary, we have seen how the ocean's most unassuming predators wield tools, construct fortresses, shape illusions, and even broadcast sound across entire basins. These behaviors are not accidental or instinctive reflexes. They are calculated responses to dynamic environments, tactical decisions from animals that many still dismiss as primitive. But in the vast marine wilderness, success doesn't always belong to the biggest jaws or the fastest strike. It belongs to those that can read their surroundings, recall what worked before, and adapt when it doesn't. In a world of ever-shifting currents, reefs that crumble, and prey that grow wiser, nature rewards those that can outthink as much as outfight. Consider again the octopus, a creature with no skeleton, no vocal cords, and no lifelong teacher. Its brain, large, folded, and neurologically dense, functions unlike ours. With most of its intelligence distributed among its 8 arms, it builds dens with foresight, selects tools for later use, and solves mechanical problems in real time. In captivity, octopuses unscrew lids, escape aquariums, and remember individual humans. In the wild, they learn to mimic lionfish and sea snakes, using skin texture and motion to deceive. Their learning is experiential, driven by curiosity as much as necessity. And yet, they have no parents to guide them, no tribe to observe. Each one invents its tactics from scratch, shaped not by inherited tradition, but by an ability to test and remember. Just as compelling are the dolphins, social predators whose bubble ring hunting techniques showcase both planning and performance. When a dolphin exhales a ring of bubbles and nudges it into a wall, it is not just play, It is the act of manipulating an environment to control prey movement. The wall corrals fish, panics them into clumping, and creates a brief but potent window for an efficient strike. Some dolphins adjust ring size or formation depending on water visibility and prey density. These are not mechanical routines. They are flexible tools, passed on between individuals, refined through observation. In some pods, young dolphins have been observed practicing with no food in sight, shaping rings over and over, like apprentices perfecting a skill before using it in the hunt. Even solitary predators, like the great white shark, exhibit decision-making that points toward more than brute instinct. A breach is not simply a reflexive leap. It is the final result of numerous calculated variables. Approach angle, swim speed, prey trajectory, and depth all converge in a split-second attack that throws a 2-ton body airborne. Younger sharks fail often, not because they are weak, but because they misjudge these elements. With time and repetition, they improve, selecting better angles and learning to conserve energy. Biologists studying these breaches off Seal Island have found that sharks don't simply charge in. They circle below the waves, watch, reposition, and time their strike to when prey is least aware. There is restraint and precision, hallmarks of learning. Across these species, a new picture of intelligence emerges, one that does not mirror human logic or primate tools, but reveals a parallel evolution of cognition shaped by different constraints. Cephalopods like squid and cuttlefish use chromatic skin not just to hide, but to communicate, distract, and confuse. They mimic not just color, but posture and texture, presenting false identities that allow them to escape detection. Some species use dynamic color waves across their bodies, living strobes, to confuse predators or dazzle prey into stalling. Their camouflage is instantaneous, guided by eyes that filter polarized light and skin cells wired to the brain. These are not blind reactions. They are responses matched to context, adjusted for terrain, light, and predator type. The orca, among the most conspicuously intelligent of marine hunters, uses ice itself as a hunting tool. When seals haul out onto drifting floes, some orca pods coordinate waves to dislodge them, timed pulses of force calibrated to specific ice sizes and prey reactions. The whales back off, angle together, and thrust forward as one, generating surf that tips the ice. This technique is regional, observed in only some populations. It appears to be learned, perhaps passed down through generations, suggesting something very close to culture. Likewise, certain pods specialize in rays, others in fish, others in seals. The method is inherited not through genetics, but through imitation and teaching, hallmarks of social intelligence. Beneath the equator, in dark mid-water zones, the sperm whale speaks in patterned clicks so loud they can stun squid from several meters away. The echolocation pulses bounce through water but also penetrate flesh, acting like sonar and weapon simultaneously. The spermaceti organ in its head isn't just buoyancy control, it's a sound lens. It shapes acoustic energy into beams, allowing the whale to navigate, hunt, and perhaps even communicate in dimensions we're only beginning to grasp. Within their families, whales use coders, sequences of clicks with identifiable rhythms. Some are shared across clans. Others are unique. It's language without words, identity without vision. Even in the crustacean world, we see surprising cognition. Mantis shrimp recognize individual rivals by color and behavior. They learn which opponents to challenge and which to avoid. Some crabs reuse and reshape old shells with tools, shaving down interiors or covering weak points with collected debris. The line between instinct and innovation grows thinner with each observation. These animals do not simply react, they evaluate, they remember, they revise. So what defines intelligence in the ocean? Not just the size of a brain or the presence of speech, not the ability to use fire or write symbols. In this realm, intelligence is tactical. It is spatial, adaptive, and sensory. It emerges in species with wildly different anatomies, distributed nervous systems, cone-shaped skulls, sonar larynges, chromatophore skin. It survives without civilization, without history. It reveals itself in the quiet acts of planning that unfold below the surface, where tools are built from sand, battles fought with light and sound, and every successful predator knows that power alone is not enough. Across the chapters of this story, a deeper thread has woven through each hunt and behavior: calculation. Nature does not simply improvise, it iterates, Trial becomes method. Method becomes strategy. And strategy becomes survival, especially when claws and teeth are no longer enough. For the animals of the ocean, intelligence is not an exception. It is an advantage evolved again and again in forms we are only just learning to recognize. There is no single brain that rules the sea, no dominant system or singular intellect that can claim supremacy. Instead, there is a mosaic of minds, some centralized, some scattered through arms or fins or feelers, all converging on the same goal: to outlive, outmaneuver, and outlearn. In the quiet cold beneath the surface, the ocean thinks in movement, light, pressure, and rhythm. And from that silent code, it has crafted hunters that do not merely survive. They adapt. They remember. They plan.